Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of Dakota Boys Talk Movies. I'm your host, Steven, and I'm here with...
This is the Dakota boy, known as Dakota.
Dakota boy known as Dakota. And, so we're here. Tonight, our review will be of the new movie directed by Brad Bird, starring George Clooney, and more or less an up-and-coming actress, Britt Robertson, in the new movie that Disney did, Tomorrowland. And so we'll be reviewing that tonight and going into how we felt about that movie, if it was deserving of being a big summer blockbuster, all that kind of jazz. But before that, there's a few things in the news we're going to talk about this week. Dakota, there's one thing that kind of just came up. What was that, yesterday or today?
Yes. The world lost a very, very interesting person. John Nash is dead, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you... all of you sitting there saying, well, who the heck is John Nash? John Nash is the person that the film A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe, was based off of. That was his life, and he suffered from mental illness.
Yeah, and which disorder did he have?
Oh, I'm actually not really sure. I know paranoid schizophrenia was one that they...
Yeah, that was a big movie when it came out in the early 2000s there.
Yeah, won a few Oscars and pretty much...
Jennifer Connelly played his wife, and she took home her Oscar for that.
I think that movie is what pretty much cemented Russell Crowe as a serious actor, because I think before that he had just, Gladiator?
He had Gladiator before that, which he got an Oscar for.
Yeah.
And that was the one, and I think, Gladiator helped propel him into roles like Beautiful Mind, where he was noticed by Ron Howard and stuff, and they went, here's a guy who takes his role seriously. Some would argue a little too seriously, because some people think he's a crazy method actor, which is why Robert Downey Jr. Basically parodied Russell Crowe in the movie Tropic Thunder. That was basically more or less a parody of Russell Crowe and how he goes totally method in his performances to a fault.
Hey, it works for the guy. I mean,
Does it? I saw Robin Hood. I don't know if that... I don't know. As of late, I don't know. Russell Crowe seems to be kind of on a slope of slipperiness. What do they call that? A slippery slope?
Yeah, well, I thought he was good in Man of Steel. And then I think, but really the last movie...
It's because he was an actor. There weren't very many good actors in Man of Steel.
Hey, that is...
I mean, I'm not totally bashing the movie. I mean, I like Man of Steel more than some people do. But you gotta, I mean, there wasn't a huge caliber of acting in that movie. I mean, there were people in it who had won things and stuff, but they weren't great. I mean, Amy Adams won things, but I wouldn't consider her, top-tier actress or anything. But maybe that will cause other people to start saying, oh, Amy, I love her.
Yeah. I mean, I like them, and I think they all pulled it off pretty well. But honestly, I think the last movie that Russell Crowe headlined that I thought was really good is American Gangster, probably.
Oh, with Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's like Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, and you have Ridley Scott and Russell Crowe, And then Denzel's like, whichever Scott brother's available, I'll work for. And except now Tony Scott passed away by his own doing.
Unfortunately.
And so he can't work for that Scott anymore, I guess. But we're really digressing. The main topic was John Nash, the actual John Nash that Russell Crowe played in A Beautiful Mind, died, and so did his wife. And, I was telling my wife this, how it's ironic you live to be 86 years old, 82 years old, like they were, and you don't even die of old age.
Yeah.
You get in a car accident and die. It just kind of shows that, I mean, death can come to anyone, and just because you're old doesn't mean you're going to die from oldness. It's just kind of, just...
wow, that was awfully deep, Stephen.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where you call it irony.
Yeah,
but it's almost, it's not even funny haha irony. It's just it's just kind of interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, the two of them had been through so much. I mean, obviously because of his mental illness, he had gone through so much, and
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, because I'm sure they pictured it, both laying in bed together and just falling asleep. And
That's how you want it to be.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just, you never know when it's coming, and maybe that's depressing, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Some
other depressing news, but not nearly as depressing as that. Stephen.
This really isn't that depressing if you're not a Stephen King fan at all, which personally, as in me, I'm not a huge Stephen King fan. Yes, I like Shawshank. Who didn't? I mean, but you gotta admit that it really isn't what Stephen King is known for. But getting to the point that they were planning on remaking the movie It, even had, they had a director, they had some actors cast, and that director, who he was just coming off of the very highly praised True Detective. They're not calling it a mini-series, but it was kind of a limited series type show on HBO. He dropped out just yesterday, and now Stephen King is saying this It remake might be dead.
Yeah,
might be.
I think it's a little too early to sign the death certificate on this one, though.
Stephen King is apparently pessimistic, which makes me rethink some of the endings to some of his books.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember there were other instances too where directors left, and it was
Ant-Man. Everybody thought that was dead because they're like, well, why isn't Marvel changing the date? And they didn't change the date. They just brought in some guy, and now that's on shaky. That's the movie's like, it's either going to be a huge movie or it's going to be a disaster. Nobody really knows.
Well, one I was just thinking of is the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
Once Guillermo del Toro, master filmmaker, departed.
It was interesting, too, because I saw some concept art of how he would have had Smaug look, because Guillermo's obsessed with drawing his own creatures and saying, make it look like this, or, sorry, that was terrible, Spanish accent. And he would have, Smaug would have looked more like what you'd expect in a Guillermo del Toro movie than...
Oh, so he would have looked awesome?
Yeah, it was like, it would have probably resembled more something... Imagine a giant monster at the end of Pan's Labyrinth or something. It would have looked more like that. Yeah, he apparently had a different idea of how to make a dragon than, Peter Jackson went totally, traditional. Smaug, it was cool to have Smaug, I guess, but it was like, there wasn't a whole lot of awe. He was just kind of like, yeah, that's a dragon. Yeah, you always kind of hope there'll be... not that you want to be like, they go in, it's just ridiculous, or looks like Falcor from Neverending Story or something, but,
I was a little disappointed with Smaug, because he honestly looked like something that, would have showed up in the Harry Potter movies.
That's what I mean. It just was so traditional that it went to almost unimaginative, like... Because Harry Potter, some of those movies are pretty phoned in.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of imagination. They're basically like, well, here's the story, let's film it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. But yeah, those were kind of the two bigger news things just in the past few days from when we're doing this podcast right now. Nothing too big. Just those are the things that are out there. So anyway, I think we'll go into a review of Tomorrowland, and
all right, take it away, Stephen.
When I touched this pen, I saw this place. Someplace amazing. And it felt like anything was possible. And then it was gone.
What do you want?
I want you to take me to the place I saw when I touched this.
Where'd you get that?
I know that you were there.
Who are you, kid?
Well, Tomorrowland. It was a movie. And honestly...
You had me at movie.
It was a movie. And I'll give it a lot of credit for trying to find heart, trying to reach out and find something original and fresh to do in a movie in this world. I mean, if you look at this summer, is there any movies this summer that are big like this one kind of was that aren't reboot, prequel, sequel? I mean, what else is out there besides this one that would be in the just total, I'm talking totally original category. Not, well, Ant-Man, because I mean, that's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, good lord. Unfortunately, this is what has become of the summer movie season, pretty much. So, the answer is, no, I don't think there is anything else as original as this.
I got a few of the ones in front of me. Pixels. I mean, that was like one of you could say is a little more like, you know, there's nothing. It's coming. It's using old video games, but it's not coming off an adaptation of something or whatever. But other than that, all the rest are. And then you got, like, you know, Mission Impossible 5, and you got a couple 5s this summer. Jurassic World is technically Jurassic Park 5, isn't it? No.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm like,
no,
it's
4.
4.
Yeah, whoa.
All of a sudden I'm like, wait, there's too many. That's way too many. Yeah, number 4, I guess. And then, you know, Man from U.N.C.L.E. is coming out in August, and that's a TV show.
Yeah.
You know, but there's things like that, and so...
Still not quite sure where this Terminator movie passes.
They're trying to be original by using an old idea, so... yeah, that's like a reboot, sequel, prequel, remake. They're just cramming it all into one thing, man.
I think the execs at Fox are out of control at this moment and need to be stopped.
Well, is it even Fox anymore that owns Terminator franchise? I mean, every movie gets bought by a new company that tries to fix it. Fix it! So, anyway, Tomorrowland, one of the few... I mean, I guess it is based off a ride at Disneyland, to be totally technical. So, there is that. I mean, the inspiration for doing this movie is because of a ride at Disneyland. So, I guess you could take away a few original points there, obviously. But really what this movie is you follow this girl... This teenage girl who, it's pretty much set up from the beginning that she is extremely curious, extremely intelligent, and doesn't, you know, they keep showing her in school and everything's pessimistic, and she's going from what classes? She went from English class, science class, and every class is like how,
Yeah.
You know, she's in science and they're talking about everything in the world going to crap. She's in English, and all they keep talking about is all the dystopian novels and how those are coming true, like 1984 and those type of books. And she keeps questioning, yeah, but as long as there's people with new ideas and optimism, you know, can't it be different than that? And so basically because of that, she's sought after by this robot from Tomorrowland to change the world, or fix the world, however you want to look at it, both really.
Yeah.
And they need the help of a former boy genius who is now a raggedy old grump who basically has fallen into who gives a crap type of idea. And so that's kind of your setup for the movie. And as far as just overall, like, let's just go into just look and feel and pace of this movie. Dakota, how'd you feel all that went in this movie?
Oh, where to start? Well, the movie actually starts out pretty interesting, I'd say. You have the girl, of course, at the NASA Space Shuttle launch site.
I love how they always try to, like, when there's nerds in movies now, it's like, they're not just a nerd, but they're like, bad girl or bad boy, criminal nerd. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it kind of has her pretty much destroying government property.
Yeah.
to save the space shuttle launch center
Now say that 10 times really fast. 10 times, just go on.
Yeah, and of course, she thinks she gets away with it, and come to find out later, she didn't. Apparently her dad is a lot smarter than she gives him credit for.
Yeah, her dad is a NASA engineer, and so they live near Cape Canaveral, and she wants to stop them from destroying the Cape Canaveral launch site, which I think in her drive to want to go to space and her wanting to explore the new things, it was almost like her trying to save that. I think, maybe she wasn't even literally feeling this, but what the screenwriters maybe trying to get across was, I think she felt like destroying that is like destroying imagination and the want of discovery. You know, it's almost like what that was symbolizing in a certain sense, you know. Like, she didn't want them to destroy the symbol and epitome of exploration and discovery.
Yeah, it kind of made me wonder if the writers of this movie saw the Inception trailer and were like, hey, that's a good point. Because the Inception trailer the original one.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to remember. What are you referring to, I guess?
Oh, it was Matthew
referencing.
McConaughey pretty much talking about how we used to have dreams and ideas and aspirations, and we used to be explorers. Now we just...
You're talking Interstellar.
Oh, Interstellar. Holy cow.
It is confusing because he had two movies that start with N. Yes, the Interstellar original teaser. Yeah. He was like... Yeah, it was kind of him we caught him monologuing. He was monologuing about, just the death of pioneering... Yeah, in imagination, and yeah, I see what you're saying. It was like it did feel like they took note from that a little bit, or
which you gotta kind of agree with them. I mean, at one point in time, this country was like, "Yeah, we're gonna start exploring space." Now it's like, who cares about space?
Well, it is funny how, and that's even brought up to bring up another Ron Howard movie, Apollo 13.
Yeah,
how nobody cared. You know, oh, man had been to the moon, who gives a crap? You know, we've already been there. But then, when did people care? It was basically like NASCAR. They didn't care until there was a crash. You know, and it's like, nobody cared that they were going to go to space anymore. But then, once it was a disaster, they cared. And that's how it is now, even still. I mean, we're sending up space shows all the time, but nobody knows until the insulation fails on one, and then we watch it crash down to the Earth for 2 hours on CNN. You know, and all of a sudden it's big news. It's not big news unless it's disaster or we crash a probe into Mars because somebody used kilometers and somebody used miles. You know, it's something stupid like that. I mean, this movie was really, I guess you could, to get to what the message of the movie was,
yeah, pretty much mourning the loss of, I suppose, pioneering, and there's really nothing left to explore on Earth. I mean, but the ocean. The ocean is really an untouched frontier in a lot of places. We just don't know how to totally get there. Yeah. But isn't space a lot more exciting? I mean...
But to really go off the map and quote Aaron Eckhart from the movie The Core, space is easy. Space is easy. It's just big and open. Now going into the Earth, that's hard. I just quoted The Core. Thank you.
Oh.
Who can forget about that disaster movie? That was a disaster movie on a lot of levels.
Yeah. Yeah, not his finest hour.
Or nobody's finest hour.
Hilary Swank's for sure.
Stanley Tucci, yeah. Anyway, you're right. This movie really started with the world they were showing is, you could really tell they were getting across, this is our world right now. It is just like everybody keeps talking about the demise of everything, and nobody's really trying to see if we can change that. They've just accepted the fact that that's the way it is. But through this girl, this main girl, we're seeing that there are people that want, that want to try to do something about it, and that's the point of Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland is this, what is it? It's like another dimension is how It's how it's described, right? Yeah, that's how he describes it. Where it's this other dimension that was set up by Edison and Tesla and Eiffel and who's the other one? They were like these 4 guys that created this place as a place to go and just have no limits, and the politics weren't in the way. It was a place of free. This is what killed me. It was like they were trying to make it sound like it was almost like a utopian place, like it was free of bad people or something, and it's like, okay.
It was also free of distractions, so I'm just taking it as there was no internet in this place.
Yeah, that was the other thing. That's what it was. They were trying to make it was a place free of politics and distractions where whatever your imagination could come up with, you could find a way to do it there and discover it there and try it there. And so that's where you go back to George Clooney's story, and that's what he was. He was a 11-year-old boy who was taken to Tomorrowland because he was seen as somebody great, but then he was kicked out. He was kicked out for, well, really the point of this movie and how there was something he created that he's not sure if they can turn back, and that's where this new girl comes in. Is like, can there? And it was really just like, can this next generation of people have the thinkers and imaginations and artists to change the world from the trajectory we're on?
Yeah, this movie definitely had a lot of social commentary. I will give it that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll know it when you see it, but the last 5 minutes of this movie felt like a Marines commercial or something. Like, the few, the proud, the Marines. You know, where they're like, you know, we need reaching out to... This movie had the same feel as Interstellar in this sense, too, is where it felt a little too... It started to delve into the little too self-important, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to get across a greater message, hence, you know... And it's such an important message that it's worth being overly heavy-handed on in some parts, you know? And I felt it was too heavy-handed. You know, it's too self-important in that aspect. Where instead of just being the entertaining movie and letting people think about that, it tried to be too far of a commentary.
Yeah, I think that's really the downfall in some of these films. It's some people don't realize that less is more sometimes, and sometimes the story gets overpowered by other people's motives, you know, director, writer, film executive, whatever, but...
Yeah. This film was directed by Brad Bird, who a lot of people will argue has never had a bad movie, until maybe arguably now. But his first movie was The Iron Giant. Now, that was one that didn't do very well right away, and now has kind of this cult following, and now when people go, oh, Brad Bird, you know, he was a visionary who did Iron Giant. You know, it gets brought up as like one of his top movies, you know, besides the other ones he did would have been after Iron Giant. He did Incredibles, Ratatouille. He started in animation, and then Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol was his move into live action. And now this is his 5th movie, and it's live action also, obviously, Tomorrowland. And all his movies are really good on the visual side of things. Yeah. Like, I thought this movie looked really good, and I thought the way they did things in this movie looked cool. Would you agree with that?
I'm not gonna lie. Lately, towards some of these newer movies, I am noticing some really bad CGI.
There was a few spots in this one where it took me out for a second.
Yeah.
But honestly, I was noticing... in the preview, most of you remember if you've seen the trailer for this, when she first grabs a pin, she's in a wheat field, and then she wanders into Tomorrowland, the scene where she wanders into Tomorrowland at that point, I was surprised about how many things like that when this train comes by, transporting train thing. I think that might have been real.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was realizing that you could see they were trying to, and it seems funny to say this, like, that was actually real, but that's where we are now, where these actors are practically walking around in a big empty green room, and the director's like, all right, now, in front of you will be this, and coming, and, you could actually, I mean, it looked like they were trying to do a few things, at least a little practical in this, but you're right, there were still some scenes where it's like,
Well, what I was kind of impressed with was the scene where it shows the guys flying the jetpacks, because that just looked really cool.
I did, yeah. Yeah, you just see this shot where they're just, apparently it's like, how like down in Florida places you can like just rent a Segway and zip around on the beach. Apparently in Tomorrowland you can just grab these jetpacks that are on charge stations and just fly them around in the air. Yeah, that's what they were doing just for fun. And they're like, dude, we got to get to wherever, and it was like, I'm sold. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool with that. But I guess, I don't know, is there any other things in the movie you noticed that stuck out to you one way or the other? Like, what do you think was, outside of the message, what do you think, because obviously we see there's some there, but like, what do you think was like the absolute worst thing in this movie?
I thought the story kind of got bogged down, mostly concerning the fact that, we're on the run from these robots.
Yeah.
With these creepy looking smiles.
Yeah,
and I don't know. That's where it kind of got kind of stuck, and it started to slow down.
Yes.
And another thing, I'm noticing this more and more in movies lately. It's like there always seems to be like a chase scene in movies now, and it's like, when did this become a thing in every single movie?
Yeah, you're right. I think it like if you at all have action or adventure or action-adventure as one of your genre things that you're included in, it's like on your checklist of, okay, have your chase scene? And you're right, it does feel like that is getting to be in a lot of things. And I think it's because in a movie like this, like we were just talking about, where there is this movie had a lot of, like, build-up. Like, the story, it just was like, you kind of started, and it just kind of kept going, and just imagine starting with, like, a Lego brick, and then you had another Lego brick, like a tower, and that's what this movie was it was just kind of like this slow build, really, to where it was finally going, and I think because of that, and I think some other movies having that same kind of thing, because otherwise, I think they feel like if we don't have this slow build, then we're just going to be, the only director I can think of, this is kind of cheap just to say this director, but we're just a Michael Bay movie where it's just like, it's just like a diarrhea of explosions, or it's just like, and so I think like their way of getting around that is like, well, we want to have this building story because otherwise we'll just seem like a diarrhea action movie. We'll have this build, but we don't want to totally lose the people who have total ADD, and we'll throw in this chase scene. And I think the chase scene is just the easiest way to have a boom thing in there. The other thing is the chase scene also distracts you if your story's lacking. That would be the other way you use this. And that's what I was trying to figure out in this movie. It's like, with those parts that you were just talking about there where it felt like almost filler, like, did this have to go on that far? And at the same time, I was sitting here going, yeah, but when I looked at how long this movie was, it was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Would it have mattered if they, cut back a little bit of that? I don't know, not really. Would it have mattered if this movie was, like, 1 hour and 45 minutes? Or whatever, I'm just throwing out some number that's under 2 hours, and maybe not. I don't think so. There's movies that need to be over 2 hours, just because Avengers: Age of Ultron. It's an ensemble movie. You have so many people, so many places you're going. You hardly feel that time. Or Lord of the Rings. You hardly feel the 3 hours. Some people would argue that Return of the King you do. But, there's just so many things going on. You need it. But for a movie like this, do you need to be over 2 hours? Do you need to draw it out?
I guess I'm gonna say the answer is no. You don't have to draw it out.
No. That's that. I was being rhetorical, but thank you for answering.
The price of movie tickets has gone up. That does not mean that movies should automatically just become longer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like Toy Story. I'll just use this as an example, and let's go back to the beautiful year of 1995. I don't know if that was a beautiful year. Of when Toy Story came out, and let's say movies cost what they cost now in 1995, and I went to Toy Story, which is like, 70? I think it's barely 80 minutes. Would I have left that movie feeling gypped? No. No, I wouldn't have, because I would have been like, holy crap, that movie had, I've never seen an animated movie like that. It had a cool story. They kept the parents involved because they had, these funny comedic talents like the guy, Wallace Shawn and Don Rickles and Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, playing these parts where it almost had this. I mean, you know what I'm saying is,
yeah.
You have all this, and it's like, who cares? But you can go into these movies that are just super long, and then you think to yourself, even though it's long, I still feel like I got ripped off or something, And I don't know. This is a movie. This Tomorrowland, I would put right in the middle. I didn't feeling ripped off. I didn't leave feeling, mad or anything. But I also didn't. The point of this movie was to inspire. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I'd have to strongly agree. That's definitely what they were going for. Get people thinking.
Okay, now did you leave inspired? Or are you too old and jaded? Are you just an old, jaded son of a gun?
How did you know? How did you know, man? I've been trying to play it cool. You just outed me, man.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm admitting I didn't leave inspired. I left feeling like that movie had some cool parts. It looked cool. It was nice to see a movie that had something new to offer in a certain sense, where you don't just see a movie like that.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? Another Disney movie based off a theme park ride, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and that's been brought up, just because, and then of course Haunted Mansion. Yeah. Don't forget about Haunted Mansion.
No, it's like
sorry
people...
about that train if you're hearing that.
Yeah, those jerks. They're going crazy with that tonight. Lay off the horn, dude. We can hear you.
Okay, anyway, you're saying it feels like
well,
Pirates of the Caribbean.
People left Pirates of the Caribbean. You're like, oh, hey, that was pretty cool. Those pirates seemed okay. And it's like, okay. And I don't know. It's just it's like they took an idea, theme park ride, and they tried to pump it up. Mm-hmm. And I know Walt Disney created Tomorrowland to inspire future generations.
Yeah, right.
And I kind of feel like the studio maybe was pushing that, maybe, and they found a guy who, Brad Bird. He's a really good.
And to be fair, it was written together, Brad Bird and Damon Lindelof, which if you pay attention to credits of things, he would have been producer, writer, and after J.J. Abrams left, a co-showrunner of Lost. Would have been one of his big claims to fame, would be Lost.
His most recent work is Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes, he worked on the stories for those. Yep.
Yes, cue the jeers, please. Cue the jeers.
Star Trek Into Darkness. How it was basically Wrath of Khan repackaged and changed a few scenes.
If only I could forget my many years of Star Trek experience, I feel like I would appreciate that film more.
You're a DS9 guy, aren't you? I can smell you people miles away. Yeah,
But yeah, I feel like it was just this idea. I mean, Brad Bird's movies, they're usually full of hope. I mean, Iron Giant,
yes,
gets pretty dark, but it ends like probably and makes you feel pretty good at the end. The Incredibles, same way.
Sure. Yep. It was kind of like it was just kind of
but
a family rekindling their.
But I think he was specifically hired for this just because of that, and they were trying to like, okay, work your magic, and just get this message across. And I don't know, maybe he didn't really have it in him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was given an impossible task, and this is coming from my point of view because I just thought the message of this movie was silly.
Yeah.
And this isn't. It's not because I look at the world and am just dwelling on this dystopian thing and volcanoes and wars and stuff, but it's just like the answer they came to and where they were going was just silly to me. It just was like, and it felt. I don't know, and I think. I'm just gonna. There was this part
okay.
when George Clooney was a little boy. It wasn't George Clooney, obviously, playing himself as a little boy. He was in motion capture and played himself as a little boy. No, it was a different boy playing George Clooney as an 11-year-old. And they had the way this was 1960s technology, so Tomorrowland had advanced this much. The way they got to Tomorrowland was riding a ride at the World's Fair, and then it scanned their pin, and then they went to Tomorrowland that way. Well, the ride he was on was Walt Disney's It's a Small World. It's a Small World ride.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, well, now I know for sure. That just played into the message of the movie where it's like, we, like hold hands and fix it together. I don't know. I'm not saying this right, but
yeah.
You know what I mean. You people know. It's just you people. What do you mean by you people? Was just that whole how they used It's a Small World as the way to Tomorrowland just played into the message of the movie that would just ended up coming across really cheesy. As far as acting, you had a big name in the starring role. You had George Clooney, who. Let's just start here. Dakota, how do you feel about George Clooney as an actor?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think I've really seen him in anything that's ever blown my mind. I mean, he was pretty cool in the Ocean's movies, whatever they're called.
Yeah. Even though 12 and 13 weren't as good, I mean, him and Brad Pitt, for some reason, had a good chemistry with each other in those movies. You know, the way they had their friendship.
Yeah, but he's kind of like Julia Roberts. It's like, why does he get the attention and the fame and the accolades he does? It's like, I don't think I've ever really been impressed by anything of his.
Yeah, he's always just been one of those guys where he's okay, and you just.
I think I've been.
Or he's like I should rephrase it. Okay to just something that's stupid, or whatever. But
I mean, he's a decent actor. I mean, he's not. It's not like he's.
He had a movie a few years ago that was getting all this acclaim. The Descendants. Did you see that? I guess I didn't see that movie, and so.
Yeah, it's the one that kind of put Shailene Woodley on the map.
Yeah, the girl is now in the Divergent series.
Yeah, where he was like the king of the Hawaiians.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see it?
Yeah, it's been so long though.
Well, was supposed to be George Clooney at one of his finest moments?
Yeah, the movie was okay. I mean,
but he didn't stand out at all, or anyway.
No, Shailene Woodley pretty much stole that picture from him.
Yeah, and see, the most recent thing I saw him in would have been Gravity, and in that movie, it was like he was playing Danny Ocean, but in space, where he was just playing a cocky guy, who was like, yeah, look into my beautiful eyes, you know, Ryan. I'm trying to remember what Sandra Bullock's name was, like Ryan or something. That, you know, where he was basically just playing a smart astronaut version of himself, really, just kind of a cocky guy. And so yeah, he didn't really stand. Obviously, that was a Sandra Bullock movie mostly, anyway. But yeah, he's always just been kind of there. I honestly, I can't hardly think of a movie he's in that I really like. You know, other than, like you said, the Ocean movies are okay. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is pretty good. If you've seen that, kind of a fun 1930s version of the Odyssey. Yeah, I mean, and in this, he was just kind of like, did any of the performances stand out to you in this movie? Like Britt Robertson, she was the main girl in it.
I'm having trouble remembering the actress's name, the one that played Athena.
That was who I was going to bring up too.
Yeah.
She plays a robot, but she got offended when you used the term robot. They called themselves automated
AAs for sure.
Yeah, AAs, automated androids, or however they worded it. And yeah, her name. She's just a little girl who's British. I don't know. I wouldn't put her much past 13. I think her name in real life is like Raffi something. She's an up and comer. Well, probably will be now anyway because of this. Unless this kills her career, like the Star Wars prequels almost killed Natalie Portman's or something, but almost. So she could still be okay. This new girl, yeah, she would have been who I'd say is a standout, just because. Yeah, there is the level of her as playing the emotionless machine, but at the same time, the way she was playing that in her dialogues off of the other two, George Clooney and Britt Robertson's characters, she was pretty good. She was pretty good. And then, you know, George Clooney met her when he was a little boy or whatever, and there's a sense where you can see without her saying anything that, you know, that she's fighting certain feelings that you didn't know a robot could have, where, you know, she had kind of a deeper affection for George Clooney's character, Frank. And I mean, if you look at, of any of the performances in the movie, Hugh Laurie was also in this movie. Again, he was just kind of there, talking.
I honestly thought he was an android till he made that remark about drinking the shake every morning. I was like, oh, okay, he must be human. Yeah,
I didn't know what they were gonna do with Hugh Laurie either. You know, I didn't know if he would end up being an android or what would happen there. But, and this isn't a spoiler because, I mean, like Dakota said, pretty early on you find out he has to drink a shake every morning. You know, in Tomorrowland, it's what they drink because it's what they have to stay young or whatever. And yeah, but that was the thing. There wasn't really any, you know, like we said, this little girl who's relatively, I've never seen her in anything else, never heard of her till this.
Yeah.
She would have been the only real, like, oh, she was okay. You know, there's a few little other cameos of, if you know who Keegan-Michael Key, or no, Keegan-Michael Keen, or no, Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was, and that lady, Catherine Hahn or whatever. I've seen her in Parks and Rec. They played these two roles in it also, but that was like more cameo and.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that whole thing. Well, that scene was funny just because, oh my gosh, it was like Disney was reveling in the fact that they have, that they own Star Wars, because those characters work in like this not comic book, memorabilia store. Thank you. And there was every kind of Star Wars thing you could think of in there. I mean, they even had Han in the
Carbonite.
In the Carbonite, a big thing of that, and when the doors opened, it played like the Star Wars music, and yeah, they're really enjoying the fact that they have the rights to Star Wars. Disney is.
I was honestly during the fight in that store, I was expecting them to pull out some of those toy lightsabers.
I know, that crossed my mind, but
I think Brad Bird was like, that may be going a little too far.
Yeah, let's not take this too far. But what's ironic about that is Brad Bird was actually given the opportunity to direct the Star Wars, what we now know as Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I think then it was still known as just Episode 7. He was offered that before J.J. Abrams, and he turned it down because of Tomorrowland.
Wow.
So, yeah, just kind of an interesting little tidbit I found out of something he did. And so, he may regret that, but viewers may not, because, I don't know, Star Wars is shaping up to be, like it looks like it'll be a good Star Wars movie. It's hard to know. By the trailers, I'm excited, but it's always hard to know totally how something's going to be.
I still keep having flashbacks to 1999, so I'm reserving all judgments.
Yeah, you gotta reserve your judgments until the text starts rolling up the screen, and then you read that and you're like, okay, this sounds, because Phantom Menace, the text that came up on Phantom Menace, if you remember, it's like from right there you're like, wow, this is really confusing text.
It's like, is this how the War of 1812 was started?
Jeez.
The taxation of trade routes? What?
It was just like, this is just too many words. Anyway, the other thing that I thought was funny, a little tidbit, was I saw Brad Bird and Damon Lindelof being interviewed in a I don't remember who was with, like Yahoo or something was interviewing him, and of course, we were talking about Disney owning the rights to things like Star Wars and Marvel. That's all under their umbrella of ownership now. And Damon Lindelof was joking about how he had an idea for a post-credits scene for Tomorrowland, where there would be the T-pin laying on the ground, and this hand would reach down and grab it, and when it would come up, you'd see Samuel Jackson wearing an eye patch, holding a purple lightsaber, wearing a Frozone outfit, and go, not this one too! Which, seriously, that would have been worth the money right there. Seeing Nick Fury, Frozone, Mace Windu, being like, oh man, I gotta be a part of this universe now too. It's just funny how Samuel Jackson is, in every Disney universe, practically now, except for a few of those other Lucas things, they need to bring him into Indiana Jones or something.
Ooh, maybe he could do a small cameo in the next Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, yeah. But for all we know, Pirates of the Caribbean is in the same universe as Tomorrowland. Who knows? Because they're both ride movies, right?
That's right.
Anyway, final thoughts on Tomorrowland, Dakota. Final thoughts, and then your recommendation for seeing it.
I would say good, not great. But overall, I would definitely recommend it. If it's Friday night, you're sitting around bored, you want to go do something, I could think of worse ways to waste your time. Okay. That is a horrible recommendation. Wow.
He's basically saying, don't see it. But do if you might end up, becoming suicidal or cutting yourself or something, apparently. Or doing something you're going to regret or mama's going to spank you for it. But, as far as me, overall, a movie that had a lot of potential, that showed a little bit of originality and freshness, but at the same time was very cliche, which just ended up being pretty formulaic, whatever, very formula. I can't say the word apparently. But at the end is how I felt. And it, like I said, it was meant to inspire the next generation to not be so apathetic, and for that I'd give it D- on that level. And as far as going to see it, just to say, wow, it was still kind of. I would say if you're gonna see it, just rent it. If you want to see it at all, and if you rent it, wait till it's not a new release and only spend $2 instead of $4, because it's not like it's one of those unseeables. It's just it's there. It's a movie.
That it is.
The thing that really pulled me to this movie was just the fact that Brad Bird, I think, is a director that has a lot of potential. I don't think this is his one he's going to be remembered for.
Yeah, you got to remember though, even Hitchcock had his low points.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Tomorrowland. It's mankind at its finest right there, where we are always trying to solve our own problems, and ironically in this movie, what I think is funny is we're looking to ourselves for hope, but we're always the one that also causes disaster. And it just kind of makes you think, like, is there a hope outside ourselves we need to be looking at besides ourselves? Something to think about. Anyway, something I've been meaning to bring up in other weeks is we're on Facebook. It's a good way just for, I try to, me or Dakota try to remind you of things that are coming up. We put the new episodes up on there and link it there. If obviously if you subscribe, it'll show up in your subscription too. But we're on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. I do use Facebook more than Twitter, but you can follow us on Twitter. We are on iTunes. So you can subscribe on iTunes. It's on YouTube. You can subscribe on YouTube. We're basically making ourselves as accessible as possible without seeming super desperate, I guess. So you can subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube. If there's any other podcatcher you use, you can sure subscribe, just subscribe to us in that. It's really helpful for us just to get an idea of who's out there. And so you can go to our blog at dakotaboystalkmovies.blogspot.com, and through that you can link to our subscription feed to make that happen. We really encourage you to do that. It's helpful to us, and it shows us a little bit of love. So even if you only like us, just show us a little bit of love. Anyway, Dakota, you want to tease what we got coming up here?
All right, our next review, we're doing something a little different here.
Oh yeah, we're getting crazy. We're getting crazy, people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure not a lot of other people that review movies are going to be doing this, but
we're stupid like that.
We are going to be sitting down and rewatching Jurassic Park, and you will hear our commentary throughout the entire movie. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The entire movie, which is, I don't know how many minutes, over 2 hours?
Yeah, it's just over 2 hours. We may not have, sometimes we probably won't commentate through the entire credits, so that cuts down a little. But we are going to do the full movie Jurassic Park commentary. This is a movie both of us saw pretty much when it was new. I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it pretty soon after it came out on video, and it really was a pretty influential movie in terms of, wow, this is like, it was just mind-blowing to me with what movies could be, and falling in love with movies, my love for just how cool dinosaurs are, and so we're going to be doing that in preparation. I don't know if it's preparation really, but just in anticipation, there'd be the word, of Jurassic World coming out here. And actually, it's crazy to think that Jurassic World comes out on June 12th, and it's crazy to think how that's only just some few weeks away.
Yeah, about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks away.
A little over 2 weeks away, which is just nuts. You realize how quick summer goes. And so, yeah, we're going to get a little ambitious. And so I hope you take the time to do that. Obviously, if you want to hear the movie more than us, you just turn up the movie a little bit more. Or if you're just on a long commute, you can just listen to us talk about the movie without watching the movie at the same time. But we thought it'd be something fun to do, and that's a movie we both like, and dare I say love. And so we're going to do it that way. And so I think with that, we'll wrap up. Like I said, just remember to like us on Facebook, subscribe on the iTunes, YouTube type things. Yeah, this is Steven.
And this is Dakota.
And have a good night. What episode number is this? Is this 5? I think this is 5.
Let's see. I want to say yes.
Yeah, it's 5.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, lordy. It's this...
Man, this is like what you do when it's like, is it 36 or 37? We're like, ooh, we're barely, oh, God. That's professionalism right there. All right, ready?
All right, we shoot from the hip. We do what we best at.
Oh, crap.